Hello and welcome to The Big Leap, presented by CleverTap, the retention cloud leader and a pioneer in helping brands engage and retain their users. And that's what it's about here. This is your destination to learn about engagement, retention, and get to know the pioneers, the marketers, the companies, the growth leaders achieving growth through retention. Our guests, as a rule, well, they share their steps, strategies, and stories that took them from good to great. And today my guest has done this repeatedly and consistently at several app companies. That's why we have her here, because she has shaped app engagement and retention strategies across a number of companies. And she's here to share the models and the approaches she relied on at each to achieve these results. Welcome, Aurélie Genet. Great to have you on The Big Leap.
Hi, Peggy. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you as well. And as I said, it's about also the companies that you've been with throughout your career, because you started in user acquisition and then you moved into retention-focused roles before diving into product marketing. You've also led the cross-discipline engagement marketing at Flo, which is a female health app that incidentally hit 22 million users. So that's very impressive. Won't say it's all to your credit, Aurelie, but very, very interesting. And before that, you held product marketing roles, CRM positions at Skyscanner and Trainline. So I'd like to start by asking you the talent, the trait that you relied on to adapt to the needs of so many different types of users across such a range of apps.
So I think what has led me to all of these positions and these different companies is that I just love solving problems. And I think something that I've discovered through my career was user empathy, and how actually putting yourself in the shoes of a user can really help you unlock a lot of things when it comes to retention and engagement, because you get to understand the real problem that they're trying to address and looking at the different solutions that you're able to deliver for them.
You mentioned empathy, and I like to call it, being effective and emotive is sort of what marketers have to aim for. Empathy is a big part of that. That tells you how you shape your marketing, your messaging, your tone, your tonality, everything. How did you tap in to the users to understand what it was like from their view, from being in their shoes? What did you rely on?
When you speak to a business and you speak to different teams, product designers, they all say that they own the user journey. They are the advocate of the user. And the reality is that if these disciplines work together for the users, that's really where you unlock the biggest value. Everyone would bring in their expertise, but we are all working here for the users to delight them, because if you delight them, then they'll love you and they'll want to engage with your product and your brand. So I feel like, because I use a lot of product, we all use a lot of product, you use a lot of product, you would have feedback and ideas of what you like and you don't like. And just reproducing that experience for the product that you work for is actually just the best way to solve problems, I found.
So part of it is tapping into what users express, as you said, their feedback. And another is architecting journeys that make sense. Now, you've had apps that are subscription apps. You've had apps that have a very, very strong presence on the web and then try to make their app fly. Tell me about some of your observations and lessons, because it's about designing for retention.
Exactly. So retention works on framework, and I mean, everything in marketing works on framework potentially. But for retention, you would have the pirate metrics, you would have Reforged, do a really good model. And I think that these models are really helpful because they get you to understand that there is a journey and that each pieces of that journey helps in getting users closer to the value that you're here to offer. So you'll always have some sort of activation journey where users need to set themselves up and then start to experience the value. And then you need to have some kind of aha moment that was talked about in the industry for quite a while. And then you need to understand how many times they need to repeat that aha moment in order for them to stay engaged. Part of the fun is actually defining what these metrics are for your business. And that's also the hardest bit, because a lot of businesses, I think, focus mainly on generating revenue, just generate revenue at all costs. And they sometimes forget that there is a build up to generating that revenue. And so if I can share a story, I think when I was at Trainline, I was in 2015. And when I arrived, they were very much comparing, well, the app should behave the same way as the web. Users should come in, purchase a train ticket, and off they go. And so obviously from a performance metric perspective, the app was always more expensive than the web. Because if you think about this, on the web, you see an ad, you click on it, bam, you land on the landing page, you purchase your ticket, and off you go. With the app, you need to download it, go through the onboarding, etc. So there's a lot more hurdles. So one of the big piece of work that I did with them was actually to understand that the app was more of an engagement channel. It was not the place where people would go to purchase a ticket, not back then anyway, because there was not real incentive as to why I should purchase on the app. But the app was very successful, top of the charts, loads of daily active users, but people were just checking train times. Now, there's no money in train times, right? It's just people taking their train times. But because they're using your app, when they have a train ticket need, they will think of Trainline. And so my big challenge then was, okay, how do we use that engagement and make it part and build a retention around it? So I've worked really closely with the analytics team. And what we've discovered was that actually people would transact on the web and then use the app to check the train time as and when they were traveling. They were not ready to transact on the app because mobile payment at the time was not that secure, or they were, people weren't too sure about it. And we also didn't have mobile tickets. You still had to go and print your ticket at the machine at the station. So there was no real incentive for them to purchase on the mobile app. But it was important from a business perspective to build that app audience, because then when mobile tickets became widely available, we had an audience ready to be like, right, I use that app all the time. Now I just can purchase my mobile ticket. It's great. So actually what we did was changed the strategy. We were not doing user acquisition with paid ads for the app anymore. We were promoting the app to existing web users. So the app became a retention tool for the wider business, and changed drastically the performance, because then it just boomed for Trainline, which was great, because if we had focused just on the revenue, we would have missed out completely on the engagement side. Missed the trick there.
I was going to say, I missed the train, but I wasn't going to take you to a pun. Wasn't going to do it. But what is interesting in what you're mentioning there and telling us, Aurelie, is how you can indirectly, but very effectively, fix a leaky bucket by seeing what are the aspects of your experience that simply keep users engaged, keep them coming back. And here it was really a cross-pollination. It wasn't even a cross-promotion, as it were.
Exactly. And that's why I like to work with the brands that I've worked with, but also my clients today, is actually building that list of actions that users can take, and then understand what's the journey that we should take them through. So one of the exercises that I like to do is a workshop where everyone says, right, this is everything that you can do within our ecosystem or our app. Once you downloaded it, you can create an account. You can opt into marketing. You can, if we take Flo, for example, you can log your period. You can get a period prediction. You can log symptoms. You can read about that symptoms. There's so many things that you can do. And I think understanding what's the value that these actions bring to the business, i.e. a marketing opt-in for a business, crucial. For a user, I don't really want to be bombarded or anything. Then that becomes a challenge. How do we make marketing opt-in exciting and users wanting to opt into it? And we also look at, what I like to look at is the frequency at which this action needs to take place, because that gives you an idea of what sort of behavior should you be seeing. For example, a period tracking app, for most people, the period would arrive on monthly basis. So you would expect, if the product is good enough, you would expect people to come back on a monthly basis. So if they don't, well, that's a leaky bucket. Why are they not coming back? Do we need to send them a nudge, remind them? Or is it that the product experience is not good? So it just having that sort of path helps you understand where are the conversion rates dropping. And then you can come in with tactical, let's send pushes, let's send emails. If we try this and it's not working, right, is there any other things that we should be looking at, like UX or external factors?
At the top of our discussion, we were talking about the models. Yes, we know them all, the pirate metrics, RFM, love frameworks. Everybody loves frameworks. You're working on your own as well because you have been in product and you're looking at the entire journey. You're building what I think you call a growth triangle. What is that model? What's inspired you?
Yeah, so I think like you mentioned, I've had a fair amount of experience in the world of retention, and I think I can say that I've seen some of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so I think it's these three pillars are more of a reflection of what I've experienced. And so I think for me, if you want to be good at retention, well, you need to have a good product. I mean, that sounds simple, but you need to have a product with a product market fit, people wanting to engage with that product. You need to have a good team and a good culture, because retention is a business-wide challenge. It's not just marketing, it's not just product, it's not just tech, it's everyone together. And you need to have the right tech. I mean, I've been in places where it was like, well, you need to send super personalized communications. Okay, we don't have the tool for that, so we cannot do it, so we're limited by the tech. So if you don't have the right product, the right people, and the right tech, then you're not really going to go anywhere, which can sound very simple, I admit it, but I think even if you don't totally align all of these three, you're leaving money on the table. And given the current climate, I don't think anyone wants to be leaving money on the table.
Let's talk about being a work in progress, and it is. It's probably part of your workshops and what you're doing in where you're taking your career now. But the pillars are built on people and culture and something you call intellectual honesty. I'd like you to just explain that a bit, unpack that a little bit, because it sounds, as you said yourself, so completely obvious and intuitive, but I don't know that we've actually really delved into what that means and what that demands of our organizations.
Yeah, I love that. I've loved that intellectual honesty, because it's everybody thinks they're doing it, but realistically, we can all do better in the field, me included. So intellectual honesty, if you look at the definition, is basically solving a problem with unbiased and honest attitude. So I'm not going in saying, well, marketing know better and product should do this, or I'm not coming in with, well, the product is great, marketing just need to work better. It's coming in with, this is the user jobs to be done. This is our current solution. How does that compare with what's on the market? How does that compare with our competitors? What is the climate like? And really addressing this. For example, I was in places where I was pushed by the business to promote and build retention strategies on MVPs, minimum viable products. So we all know that an MVP is something you put into the world to kind of sense check some metrics, and then you get all that data back and then iterate on the product to make it better. So just wanting the world when you promote an MVP is just not realistic. So of course we can trial some marketing tactics and some retention ideas, but it's only going to inform the next stage of that strategy once the product becomes fuller and better for the users. It's just that I think sometimes when you work in startups, you're so much into your own world that you just believe that your product is the best, that you're in a rocket ship, that you're better than everyone else. And I think sometimes stepping outside of that, having a look at what's happening in the world can help you kind of readjust to reality a little bit.
But this is taking a user with you, or if you're really smart, you are following the lead of the user as well, the individual in the journey. And that brings me back also to what you brought up about personalization. It is what marketers want to deliver, need to deliver, often don't have the tech to deliver. How important is personalization now? What are you hearing also from the companies you work with? What are you hearing out there about this being the differentiation point?
I think personalization is a very slippery slope. I think you can get lost in wanting to be too personalized and actually just go into micro details, and that means you're not necessarily going to move the needle. So I think depending on where your business is at, you need to build the building blocks to personalization. So maybe start with one or two things that you can control. For example, when I was at Skyscanner, everybody knew that it's the place to go for you to get the best deal for your flights. Some people, they know when and where they want to travel, so off they go. They just need to find the best price. Then you might have some people who know they want to go to, I don't know, Cancun, but they don't know when is the right time to go. And they might want to know when is the cheapest, when is the hottest weather, when there is some cool stuff happening there that you don't want to miss. Or you might have people that know they need to travel in February, winter blues and all of that. They want to travel at that time, but they have no idea where to go. So they might want to know where is the cheapest to fly, where is the coolest place to visit at around that time of year. So just by understanding the user's context, that helps you tailor a little bit more what your value proposition is.
So you said it yourself, user context. How important or what role does real time play in this?
Again, I think real time is an interesting one, because if you look at a trip planning, for example, it happens over multiple weeks in general, from the time you start your research to the time that you're forming the plan in your head. And that's almost where I like to work with tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. What are the few signals that you need to have in real time because they're critical for the value that you deliver? And what are the things that you can delay a little bit because there is a cost attached to that technology?
So engagement is a journey. And it comes in steps and stages. And most often, it's all really about just getting past that first engagement interaction. For many, that's getting people to register is the first step to retaining them and building trust.
Exactly. And I think that's why, going back to what I was talking about with Reforge, for example, there are some events or some actions you need users to take in order to be set up. So you might need to create an account. You might need to opt into marketing, or you might need to log your first period. And so these almost create a chain of action that I, as a marketer, can use as the next best action for you to take in order to get closer to that value.
So it's about optimizing to the next best action, as you put it. What are some tips you can share, or even some thoughts about the channel mix that get you there? Because you're going to be nudging and offering perks and things. I mean, you're guiding someone on a path. You want the next best action. How do you get them there?
So I think for this to work, you need to have a buy-in at the CXO level. You need to have a really good product and a really good marketing strategy working together, and agreeing that we have these key metrics. So if you think of a funnel, and we first have to have, let's say, account creation, then we need to have marketing opt-ins, then we need to have period logging, then we need to have, that creates that step by step. Then you can organize your teams around, right, we're going to focus, I don't know, the first 30 days, and we're going to have one team looking at account registration. We're going to have a team looking at that period logging. We're going to have a team looking. And so you create these cross-functional teams where you have product, tech, and marketing working together on that one goal. We're not going to ask a team to say, hey, improve month 1 retention. That means nothing. Like, we could bombard people with sending them pushes every day, multiple times a day. At some point, they will tap on it, and then we would have influenced the retention, but it's not meaningful. So actually anchoring your efforts on these key actions really help in being laser focused and really moving business metrics.
I like that idea of anchoring. And I'd like to explore if there is even a way to understand what to do when, once you've understood and you've anchored onto these actions.
So again, depending on what that metric, what is the metric that you want to shift. So I can share what I went through at Skyscanner, for example, because one of the metrics we were tasked to shift was push opt-in outside of the onboarding flow. So not necessarily the most exciting metrics that people want to work on, because they're like, oh, we just want people to opt in to push so we can send them more pushes. So we went back to the drawing board and we're like, okay, actually, as a user, as a traveler, what is that one thing that I currently do not have in the app that would make me want to subscribe to some kind of push notification? And so we did a lot of brainstorming, and we came up with the idea of a price prediction. If I have done my research and I found the flights that I want to buy, I want to see that I'm getting the best price. So could I get some ideas of, this is a good price, let's buy it now, or actually maybe wait a little bit because the price are going to go down or the price are going to go up, etc. Now you have Trainline doing it, etc. So it's a bit more broadly available, but we didn't have it at Skyscanner. So we worked super closely on that, and that shifted the value from just give us your push opt-in at all costs. It was, hey, we have something really cool that we're building with data science that will help you get the best price for your trip. Sign up to watch the price. So it was kind of like a price watch, but with added data sciencey cool stuff. And so people really loved it because they could see that we were saying, actually, don't buy now, maybe hold on a little because the price will drop next week, because we had tons of data available. And so by shifted that business metric to a user problem, really helped in bringing the whole team together and developing that empathy, because we all want to get the best price and know when to get the best deal. And so, yeah, that was great. Unfortunately, we launched the product in January 2020, so it had a very short life. But it was still one of the great product that I've launched.
But it's not just a great journey for the user that you're sharing here, Aurelie. I'm also thinking that, hey, what you managed to do was you have the team on board. They share responsibility for the customer experience, the lifecycle marketing, because everyone was a part of this experience. Everyone was a part of the messaging and the value proposition above all.
Exactly. And I think that's the bit where everyone wants to do a good job. Everyone wants users to say, oh my God, you work for that company? I really love them. They're really cool. So everyone has that pride. And I think doing a good job, and delivering that value is really something that can unite a team together and begin to trust, hey, it's not marketing just nagging to do marketing things. It's marketing wanting to help in developing a good solution for the user. And I want to be part of this.
Everything has moved, including what defines an engaging, excellent customer experience. Thinking about what you've learned through all of your other positions, but also, again, as and we'll get to it, what you're doing now and telling companies now as you give them advice. How has that shifted? What is that goalpost?
Last year, Roe v. Wade was overturned in the US, making access to abortion at risk in certain states. And so there started to be a lot of fear and anxiety around period tracking apps. And so you would have seen in the press that there was a lot of discussions around this. And actually, one of the things that Flo did very well was address that fear, made a statement. They've actually used things like email pushes and a bit of social media to make a statement for what they were standing for, and also shared some of the plan they had around their anonymous mode at the time. We had users screenshotting the email that they received and sharing it on social media, which, I mean, how amazing is this? Have you ever screenshotted an email that you received and shared on social media? So, I mean, for me, that's why I love the concept of sustainable growth. That's why I love the idea of having empathy for the user and delivering value and really focusing on that value. Because if you do it right for the user, it will pay off. As I've grown into my career, I'm really despising more and more the tricking users into purchasing, using all of these tricks. That's really not something that I believe in. And I believe that if you do things right, it might take a little bit longer, but it builds a much stronger brand. And therefore you will increase your retention and engagement. So I think it's not, obviously you need to oil the funnel, you need to have all of the tactics in place, but retention for me is a company-wide challenge, because you need to have the brand that goes with it, because people want to connect with brands that do good things in the world and have ethics.
I want to shift a little bit to what you're doing right now. You are a fractional CMO. You're on your own journey. In a way, it's almost like a mini microcosm of marketing on a very personal level. What are some of the approaches you have found work?
So I've left Flo in December, and so I took a couple of months off and came back I've reached out to my network, because I feel like sometimes when you're in a full-time job, you don't necessarily have the time to reach out and really network and get to spend time with people. So I've reconnected with a lot of people from previous lives, learning how their consultancy journey has been going. Doing that podcast with you, getting to meet founders. So it's been so exciting, to hear what's going on, because one of the things that I found is these growth roles or these leadership roles can be quite isolating. And so you're in your day-to-day things. You have peers at work, but you can't always be 100% honest with some of the challenges, or you don't necessarily have the right sparring partner for you. And so actually reaching out to people and just asking them, how are things going, and what was your journey like, and give me some insights and all of that stuff, really helps in connecting. And usually people feel quite happy to share their journey and quite happy to help. I know certainly in the past few years I've had people reaching out to me and be like, hey, can you mentor me, can you coach me, can I pick your brain on a few things? And that's always great, because you can escape your day-to-day job for a few hours, chat to people, and just get your brain energy up again. So yeah, I think that just genuinely people just want to connect and share experiences.
And because you said yourself, growth through retention, that requires problem solving. That requires the mindset to see it differently. It's very, very different from when you're focused only on growth, because retention is the long term. Retention is the sustainable success that marketers are focused on achieving. And I want to switch to precisely that, because as you say in your LinkedIn, your colleagues rather say in LinkedIn, you are, quote, not to be messed with.
Okay.
So yes, indeed, that's what they say. Absolutely. So I'm strapping myself in for some upfront honesty about what it takes to achieve growth through retention. So first of all, the importance of retention.
It's critical, because you acquire users once. You can express how good you are, impress them very quickly, but you can only acquire them once. You want to make sure once you acquire them, you have them in the long haul, because if they like what you do, they will help you acquire more people as well.
This is called the big leap for a reason. The guests take themselves a big leap, a risk, a chance, an opportunity. What's one you took, and why are you glad you did it?
I think one of the risks that I took was joining Skyscanner, because I had been in roles that were more app marketing focused. So I had budget for user acquisition and did a bit of retention. But at Skyscanner was the first time that I was joining for product marketing, because product marketing was a thing and was embedded in product squads. And I had never done product development before. I had not much understanding of what a sprint was, retro, etc. So it was a massive, massive learning curve. But that's probably one of the greatest experience that I've had in my career, because it helped me connect so many dots.
As you said yourself, connecting those dots make up the life cycle, make up the journey. You need to understand where users are in that cycle, in their life stages as well as the life cycle. What should marketers embrace or avoid to get that right?
I think the hardest bit is to keep it simple. And that's why I love working, with frameworks, because that helps you in anchoring on very clear metrics. Because I feel sometimes with marketing, you just try to do too many things at once and you can get lost in the details. You can have too much data and then you get data paralysis. You want to do too much personalization, and that means you're hitting a fraction of your population. So keeping it simple and then building up upon that, I think would be the tip.
We talk about right message, right channel, right context. Now we are very into right timing, because that brings it all together. If I'm doing something now and searching for something now or engaging in something now, it's very different from speaking to me now or speaking to me maybe 5 hours from now when it's no longer top of mind. With that in mind, what are insights that marketers need to adapt or use in their formulas, in their approaches to hit the right context?
I think it's critical because there's so many things going on in people's life that when they are thinking of you and when they are showing signals that they're interested in your product, you need to jump on that because in a few hours' time they might be in a completely different context and not have the same attention span for your communication.
And I said it before, the big leap is about big steps. It requires brave, bold leadership. What is your chief source, your personal chief source of inspiration to do that, to be brave, to be bold, Aurelie?
I don't think I have one source of inspiration. I think I've tend to develop my leadership skills in opposition to the bad managers that I may have had in my career. I've had micromanagers, I've had, pushovers, I've had just plain mean people. And I really don't want anyone to experience the way they made me feel. So I try to go against that. I also had amazing managers and amazing leaders that, showed me that you can be kind leader. Yeah, that's how I've gone in developing my leadership skills and still developing it. I'm also big on podcast, and I've been listening to Brené Brown, Stephen Bartlett, Simon Sinek, Mel Robbins. They have some really cool speakers out there that can help you stretch your mind a little bit and consider different ways of doing things.
And hopefully a few blueprints and lessons from the big leap as well, Aurelie.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, it has been great having you. Thanks so much for sharing. And hey, your growth triangle, work on that framework, come back and tell us about that. Where can we find more about what you're sharing? You talked about your framework. You talked about your workshops. What's the best place, Aurelie?
Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm also in central London quite a bit, working at the Chiefs Clubhouse. And I'm also lining up a few conferences this year. So hopefully I'll be able to share that on LinkedIn very soon.
Absolutely. We'll be watching for it. Well, thanks again so much for sharing and also being so candid because it is a journey, but hopefully you have some inspiration from the big leap to take with you on the rest of your journey, Aurelie. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
And this has been The Big Leap. For our audience, we also publish this video as a podcast, which is easy for you to consume on the go, on the train, on the plane, wherever you may be. And if you're listening to the audio version, you can also see the video. Just search for The Big Leap on YouTube. This show is all about shining a light on amazing marketers who took the big leap to achieve growth through retention. So if you have a story to tell, hook up with me on LinkedIn and we may get you set up with a show of your own. Until then, this is Peggy Anne Salz for CleverTap and The Big Leap.